Hey guys, welcome back to another video. So Worlds is in less than 3 weeks and we are rapidly approaching the final destination. I've been taking a look at the online tournaments that have been happening recently to try to get a little idea of how decks are being built on the earlier side of this new format since Black Bolt and White Flare just released. And it's been exciting to say the least that we've been seeing some interesting tech cards, some new trends, some archetypes come back that we haven't seen in a while, and some new ones come and rise about too. So I figured let's just take a look at the most recent Smart Series tournament that came out. Had over 1,500 players online. This tournament has really been a pillar in the community for the last, I think, month since it started. So I just want to thank Gabriel Smart for putting this on because it's been amazing for me to see the trends and everything, and it's also been amazing for all the competitors. So thank you for that. But let's just dive into this and take a look at the top cut for this tournament. So to start off, the winner is actually a pure Polt list, which is not super surprising. I just think Polt is still in a really good place, although I don't think it's quite as ahead of the game as it used to be. Listen, there's nothing super crazy going on about this list. The only thing that I noticed is that I tend to find that right before Worlds happened, and somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but I tend to find that right before Worlds, the metagame always shifts to like a lot of really tech-heavy Pokemon cards. I just feel like we get a lot of like clutter, and almost every box kind of feels almost like toolboxy. Every box, every deck, not everyone, but I just feel like a lot of decks get kind of clogged up. Like I remember for Worlds last year, we were seeing it's like Squovet, like engine, and a lot of decks that like never had popped up before. And a lot of like stall cards and stuff like that. So it is interesting to see that, you know, this list is starting to get a little full with the Hawlucha, the Latias, the Maractus, and then obviously you still have your Fez and the Ursaluna. Not that, you know, this is bad because obviously he won the tournament, so he played well and he had a good list, but it's just interesting. That's just a trend that I've always noticed towards Worlds, that you start to see people really pushing that line of like having enough tech cards to deal with what you need to deal with, but also not clogging the deck and keeping the deck consistent. It's always been like a really interesting balance to me. But it seems like as far as the new cards, we're really just running two Hilda now. This is the new card that came out in Black Bolt, White Flare. Search your deck for an evolution Pokemon and an energy card, reveal them and put them in your hand, then shuffle your deck. It really feels like this card was made like specifically for Dragapult. It's very, very good. And it's a shame that more decks probably won't play it, at least right now, while we have other ways to accelerate energy. You know, a lot of the popular decks like Gardevoir, Grimmsnarl, Charizard, they obviously, you know, support themselves. It is interesting that Dragapult has shifted back to that Neo Upper Energy ace spec, when in the past we historically saw a lot of Crystal. Neo Upper Energy is just a better card, and when these lists stop running Arven, as you can see there's no Arven in this list, Neo Upper Energy is just obviously the better call because you can't search it out with that Arven, which is interesting because I've always loved Arven in this deck, but you know, he's not running any TM Evo, he's also not running TM Devo, so there's really no reason to run that Arven in this archetype. At least I would be interested to see how the other lists are going. So like this, what is this, third place Dragapult, Dusknoir list is also not running the Arven engine. So, you know, it's interesting just to kind of see how things that have been traditionally the play for this deck has been kind of shifted. And kind of playing off of that as well, you know, we haven't really seen the Dragapult Dusknoir line variant, I should say, kind of do super well. Usually people are just playing like the pure Bolt. I've seen a lot of Bolt Zard, but I haven't really seen the Dusknoir in anything other than the Charizard, at least in my local scene. So seeing it kind of come back into the meta and creep back in as we're getting that Psyduck promo that I was talking about, it is very interesting to me. So I'm not quite sure how the World's meta will adapt to this, because I don't think a lot of people are going to tech that Psyduck in last minute. You know, it's kind of one of those cards where unless you hit one of these two cards, the Magneton or the Dusknoir, it's kind of just a dead card for fodder. But that being said, just interesting to see that this seems to be trending back towards, you know, something that's being played. What really interested me, though, about this tournament is that Terrabox was back. Now, I love Terrabox. I'm not good at it, but I really, really like this deck. I found it to be very satisfying. That's the same reason why I really like EVBox. The toolbox type of playstyle has always intrigued me because I feel like it's a very, very high skill deck list. And on top of that, the way that it's built just gives you so much room to adapt it to the meta, and every game feels different. You know, you want to pull different cards, unlike something like a Raging Bolt or even I guess Charizard, right? Like you're kind of playing it the same way every time. You might vary it a little bit between matchups, but it's kind of like a very linear game plan. That's why I always love these toolbox type decks. I really wish I actually played Lost Box back in the day, but that's all. Story for another video. But let's just take a look at this list really quick. So we're going to see the 3 Teal Mask Ogrepons, the 2 Wellspring, and then we're going to see the addition of the 2 Cornerstone. Now this is a card, I took a quick look at a lot of the top cut decks in this list, in this tournament, and just honestly recently people are starting to tech Cornerstone back in their deck, which honestly is not a bad call. It's easily searchable by Nestball. You can get it out in any deck that you need. It's just super powerful. You can break through walls. So you know, those wall decks that are being built, like the Crustle and stuff like that, you can just take care of it. Ogrepon is going to be a really good tech into a lot of the meta right now. I feel like this is going to be an underestimated card, and I'm gonna be honest, I'm not entirely sure how to beat it other than, you know, with its weakness or just, you know, smacking into it and beating it. It's only 210 HP, so it's not that, you know, difficult to kill, but you know, that's just gonna be something that I think if you're playing at Worlds, you're going to have to keep that in the back of your mind. The 2 Lilies Clefairy is interesting because usually decks only run 1, but I guess if you're having an issue with the Dragapult matchup, you just always want to make sure that you have one in your, you know, deck at all times in case one gets prized. This is the important card that I think we need to talk about here, is Iron Bundle. So Iron Bundle historically is like not played a ton during the season, and then at the end of the season right before Worlds, it just keeps popping up. Like I remember last Worlds, Iron Bundle was everywhere, and it's just so funny that like it was everywhere at Worlds, and then I barely saw it all season, and guess what, it's back for Worlds again. So I do find that interesting that this is the other card that just seems to creep back into the meta. It's a very good card. I just think that a lot of lists, you know, they like to try to remain as consistent as possible. This is not a consistency card. This is a tech card to get around Jellicent, especially because I think we're going to see a lot of Jellicent in the meta going into Worlds, especially with Guardy. So this is just a really, really good card to have, especially by the fact that it doesn't clog up your bench. You can just activate it and it's gone. It's not even a free prize card as long as you use it correctly. So that's great. Otherwise, the rest of this list looks pretty normal to me. It looks like they're running 2 Bravery Charm. That's nice. I wasn't running that in my old Terra Box deck, but that was that. I guess this Ogre's Mask is kind of interesting, but it makes sense in a deck where you're going to be playing 3 different types of Ogre Pawns. I've always felt that this card was a little underused. I really like it, especially because you know, you can discard something early and not feel bad about it. I think that shows the strength of a lot of decks too, is when you're able to discard cards and not feel super penalized with it by playing Night Stretcher or Super Rod, or just have an ability that lets you take things out of the discard. It used to be like when you Pokestopped, right? You Pokestopped, but you had a ton of ways to get stuff out of the discard, so you weren't always super concerned. Just items that you couldn't get out, obviously, but that's no longer in the meta. So I think a lot of decks struggled after that rotation and have now found new ways to adapt to that. So I am excited to see what happens with Terra Box, although I'm not sure if Terra Box itself is positioned to do super well at Worlds. I mean, I guess, you know, it came in second here. Obviously, this guy was able to play it. I would be curious to see what his matchups were. Looks like he played 1, 2, 3. Looks like he played 4 Pults. He only played 2 Grimmsnarl. Interesting. He was able to beat that Crustle. Oh, no, I'm sorry. He lost to the Crustle. I take that back. So it looks like the Crustle might be a problem. It's kind of hard to go off of one, but Crustle also makes sense for this deck, right? Because, like, you just have so many EXs, like, you're probably going to have a hard time. But anyway, I just thought that was interesting. So Charizard is another list, too, that people have been really downplaying, saying Charizard's not good, Charizard's not good. And truthfully, I don't think Charizard is one of the top tier decks. However, I have to say, when I play against a Charizard player that knows their matchup well, and they have the Chi-Yu in their deck, which everybody's kind of playing now anyway, but I really do happen to find that Charizard's actually not as bad as people seem to be making it out to be. Especially since the Charizards I have been seeing have been running the trolley, actually, instead of the unfair stamp, and I think this just really helps set up Charizard, because their issue is they hate Dragapult. I've always hated playing Charizard into Dragapult. It's only gotten worse, and so you need to find a way to play from the back foot and you know, try to get set up really, really fast while you're losing things so that you can hit them late game for those, you know, big one shots and stuff like that. this guy is playing the 2 TM Evos. He's playing the Defiance Band and the Air Balloon. I mean, we're obviously going to see Air Balloon and everything. The one thing I would like to see in Charizard again would be some stadium bumps. Although I haven't played Charizard since like November of last year. So it's been about a year. So I'm not entirely sure. I'm just used to having Collapse Stadium. So I'm not entirely sure. But looking at this list though, like what do you need to... like, Collapse Stadium wouldn't even work in this list anymore, because, like, what are you removing? The Tatsugiri is a 1 prizer. Probably only going to use 1 or 2 of them, I guess. You got the Chiyu. But the Chiyu, you're probably going to take such efficient trading with that, you're probably fine losing the Chiyu. And honestly, this entire deck is just around blowing up your own Dusknoir anyway, so... not that Collapse Stadium is even in the standard for you to use anymore, but it was just a thought. I don't even know what stadium you'd want to run in here. I think... I've said this before, I do think going into Worlds, the Stadium Wars are going to be very important because there are a few decks that, like, got really, really cheesy and, like, really rely on their stadiums to function. And when you shut those off, I do think that it gives you a significant advantage. I'm not sure what would work in this deck. That's somebody who's much better than me. It's up to them to figure that out. So we got in 5th place, we have Joltik Box, which is interesting because I've never played it. I've never played against it. And anytime I ever hear anybody mention Joltik Box, they're always like, oh, this is a meme deck. Oh, this is so bad. You don't know how to play the game if you're playing this. But like, I look at this list and I'm like, there's a lot going on here. So I can't really comment too much on this deck, except for the fact that I don't really expect it to do super well. But at the same time, Worlds is one of those places where you just need to have one good run. You know, like everybody discounted Miraidon last year and Jesse Parker took it to top 4. So, you know, there's always that chance. And the same thing with Typhlosion, right? You know, Typhlosion, I don't think is a super great deck. This is interesting. This is actually Ethan's Typhlosion, but with Cloak, Draw Engine, and a Victini. This Victini, attacks used by your Evolution Fire Pokemon do 10 more to... Oh, okay, so it's just like a... What is that helping you... What's that helping you hit? Explosion. So 60 times 4 is 200 plus 40. So you're hitting for 250? What is that helping you hit? Oh, so actually you're hitting for 270 with Gravity Mountain. Okay. Actually, that's actually pretty good. For 1 energy, you're hitting for 270. And then if we take a look here, I mean, there's a decent amount of grass that's available too, right? Like you have Ogerpon here, not like a ton. I actually think Ethan's Typhlosion might low-key be in a pretty decent spot for checking Mega Venusaur, but that's a completely different format. But yeah, if you keep looking in the top 12, you see 4 Charizards. Like that is something that I never would have expected. The highest placing Guardy was 10th. Let's take a look at this list really quick. They're playing the Fluttermane and the Cleffa and the Screamtail. I had a couple of conversations with some local players and they were like, oh, I don't know about the Fluttermane, but you know, and Cleffa just kind of feels like a, I don't want to say a dead card, but just not useful. Like it feels like something else better could be put there. I don't know. I actually really like Fluttermane in this meta, especially because you can bench snipe if you need to, and Guardy doesn't care about putting 3 energies on here because you can either retreat and discard 1, or you can just let it die and then you get 3 energies in the discard, right? But you are able to kind of do some extra damage. I mean, I guess in a Monkey Dory matchup, you probably have to be careful. I'm gonna be honest, I'm not super well versed on Guardy, so I can't comment 100%, but it has been interesting seeing how Guardy has adapted. The most notable thing about this list is the fact that there's no Jellicent. The absence of Jellicent is what's interesting, because I do feel like Jellicent has a place in the meta. I feel like Jellicent is a little clunky. I've played against maybe, I think 3 Guardies since, yeah, 3, maybe 2 or 3 Guardies since, and I think they only got the Jellicent on 1 time. Other than that, the Jellicent, like, it just felt like they couldn't commit the resources to it because then they fell behind on something else. So maybe the issue that Guardy's having is that even though this card might actually be really good in Guardy, it's not just actually playing out that way. Let's take a look and see the next Guardy list and see if they were playing Jellicent. Oops, that's not it. There's no Jellicent in this one either. And you know what's been interesting is I've been seeing a lot of people... This one... So Oh, that's interesting. So this one's not even playing the Jellicent. This one's actually just playing one Frillish. So you're just stopping item cards and doing 20 damage. That's very interesting. And you're skipping the Budu. Frillish, yeah. Oh, and Frillish is actually not Buddy searchable. This guy's not playing it. Don't you normally play Buddy for Ralt? I guess maybe Guardy doesn't? Huh. I guess if you're playing Secret Box and Arvin and Artisan, yeah. Oh, that's an interesting list. Yeah, so what I was saying was I feel like I've been seeing on Twitter a lot of discourse about Jellicent, and then from my own experience, I just haven't seen a lot of Jellicent. So I don't know if it's one of those things where people are just hiding secret tech with Jellicent, or if it just really hasn't played into this meta as well as people think. That's definitely a question for somebody who has been like rigorously testing that Guardy matchup, because in theory, it should be really good and it shouldn't be too hard for Guardy to get out, but maybe they're just finding that it's not working. So yeah, I find that really interesting. Let's just see. Yeah, the first Guardy Jellicent, is at 58. That's a lot lower than I think anybody would expect. I think when Jellicent was announced, people were expecting this deck to just balloon, quite frankly, balloon further than it already has. But I do think that this Ho-Oh Armarouge deck is cool. I don't know anything about how this plays, and honestly, I look at this list and I see 22 Pokemon. I'm like, this guy is playing some sort of like toolbox deck. I don't even want to look at it. The last deck I do want to look at, though, is Grimmsnarl Frostlass, because this has been my main deck for the last couple of months now since I ever came back to the game. This is the one I'm most comfortable with, so this is the list that I kind of, I don't want to say I know the best, but I'm most familiar with how this deck plays and builds. One thing I want to note is that seems like people are starting to put the Blood Moon Ursaluna back into the, or not back, but starting to put it in the deck list, which actually I think is a really great idea, because one thing that I've noticed with Grimmsnarl is I either have a really perfect early game where I can set up the counters exactly how I want it, I can evolve Grimmsnarl exactly when I want it, and I can do what I need to do, or other times, sometimes I feel pressured into evolving my Grimmsnarl early. This could just be a skill issue as well, and it probably is, but one of the issues I have is I get my Grimmsnarl up, they take the KO. I get the second Grimmsnarl up, they take the KO. Now, I have to commit a good amount of resources to get that Grimmsnarl back out, and sometimes I just can't hit that Night Stretcher because I used all my Arvins early trying to get my board set up. So one of the issues that I have is that sometimes I just feel like I don't have that late game sweeper, you know, and Grimmsnarl only hits for 180, and people are getting a lot better at playing around Grimmsnarl, playing around Frostlass. So I do feel like having that, like, just that 240 that you could just attach one and swing, or for free swing, it's very good, especially because what I've noticed in the Grimmsnarl matchup is a lot of people will actually just boss up your monkeys or boss up your Frostlass instead of taking a KO on one of your Impidimps or on your Grimmsnarl, even, because they know you can't do the damage that you need to do without those things. So sometimes that offsets the prize trade and they end up taking 5 prizes instead of 6. Maybe it's just because I've been playing against, you know, local players instead of playing, you know, against these, you know, really big tournaments, but something to keep in mind. Now, there is the Tatsugiri, which is another thing that I always found interesting, because again, this is another card that, like, I feel like I really don't see a lot of during the year, and then it pops up again for Worlds. It's a good card, don't get me wrong. And I think what's also interesting is, just to play off of that thought that I just had there, the Japanese meta is very interesting because they play best of one. They also just approach the Pokemon game a little bit more differently. Not even just because of the best of one, I just think that, like, the way that they play the game is different. And this is a card that has been popular in Japan for years, ever since it came out. I guess 8 years, because it came out in Twilight Masquerade, but ever since it came out, they've been using it a lot. And I feel like when you go into Worlds, a lot more emphasis is put on the Japan lists. A lot more people are testing out what Japan's playing because they get the format before we do, like by a couple of months. So I think it's an interesting inclusion, because I think that the meta gets evolved because of Japan, and then after Worlds, people don't take the Japan list as seriously, which is just very interesting to me. And I think that's why you see a lot of Bundle and why you see a lot of Tatsugiri. On top of the fact that they're both very good. I'm not diminishing the fact that they're both very good. It's just, this isn't a card that you normally see in the West, at least where I play and how I've been playing online. You get a couple rogue outliers, but it's not like a consistent, you go look up a list, nobody's got the Tatsugiri in there. So that's interesting. So we're still playing the 2-2 line of Snorunt Frostlass. The 3-2-2 line, I think I normally like to run the 4 Impidimp because I just want a higher chance of starting another Pokemon. I'm gonna be honest with you, this deck, there's 2 things that I don't like with this current list. Is I hate starting Blood Moon Ursaluna, and I hate starting Snorunt, because it's just so easy for people to or even Monkey Dory too. I like starting the Impidimp, kind of getting that in early, letting them take a kill on the Impidimp if they have to while I still set up the rest of the board. A lot of the time I use my Impidimp to TM evolve like 2 more Impidimps on the bench. I like doing that. Starting the Blood Moon Ursaluna, even though I do have the Air Balloon, the problem is this is still a 3 retreat cost, so I still have to commit one of my energies and then retreat it. And if I do that, and I have to use a Night Stretcher or a Super Rod, it's less of a chance that I can get that late game Grimmsnarl out. So I'm committed to using the Ursaluna, but it's just too easily trapped. Especially since I do think we're going to start seeing a lot more jamming towers being played, because I think Golden Go is going to be crazy at Worlds. So I really think we're going to have this problem where Air Balloon's not even going to be reliable anymore. So we'll see. I really like Ursaluna when it works, but I can't tell you how many times I've started with Ursaluna in the front and been at a heavy disadvantage. So that's the one thing. The other thing too is the Grimmsnarl lists have started to cut a rare candy and have gone down to 1 rare candy. Honestly, I've been testing out the 1 candy and it's really hit or miss for me. I really love having that second candy because there's so many times where the candy is prized and I need the candy to just get that Grimmsnarl up, because there's certain matchups where you do want to just start hitting hard and spreading damage. Or there's turns where, or games like, for example, against Raging Bolt, where I don't want to get it up early, but I also don't want to commit anything. And then I just want to be able to candy Grimmsnarl the exact turn that I need it. So I'm not sure if I like the 1 candy. I think I personally would cut something else to try to keep it. Like, I don't know if I need 3 Night Stretchers. I do think the 2 Night Stretchers and the Rod, for the most part, are fine. Although I will say, prizing one of those also feels really bad, because if I lose that Grimmsnarl early, trying to get it back, it takes too many turns for me to get it back, which is also why I have the Ursaluna. So, I don't know. I feel like if you're playing the Ursaluna, you can cut the Night Stretcher and take a second candy. That's probably what I would do, but again, that's me. And I think everything else looked normal with that. I don't think there's really anything else. Oh, I guess Golden Go is probably the last deck we could talk about. And I have a video coming out on this later this week about my thoughts on like the Golden Go archetype. I've been doing some testing with it. This one's an interesting list, actually. There's some inclusions in here that I am not aware of. So Moonlit Hill. Once the player may discard a basic energy to heal. Okay, so this is something that I've been seeing, not specifically Moonlit Hill, but I've been looking at a lot of Golden Go lists. And a ton of people, shouldn't say ton, but I saw like Azul's list. I saw another list online. I saw one in Japan. People are running Picnic Basket, which heals 30 damage off of 1 Pokemon. Now I see Moonlit Hill. You can discard the Psychic Energy and then just get it back with your Superior Energy Retrieval, just to heal up that 30 damage to help with the Monkey Dory. Excuse me. I mean, Golden Go is at 260 HP. You know, knocking 30 HP off of that does help with certain attacks to try to hit what you need to hit. I don't know if you would, like, I don't know. For me, like, Moonlit Hill seems good, but I really, really like Levincia in this list. I'm not going to lie. Levincia feels very, very good. In fact, I run 2 Levincias in my list because I think, like I said, Stadium Buff's going to be very important. I mean, maybe run 1 Moonlit Hill and 2 Levincias, just because I think Jamming Tower is going to go crazy. And, you know, there is the Tool Scrapper that I think is great, but I have not seen it at all. People have not adapted the Tool Scrapper meta. Although, that being said, there is a very good chance that if Golden Go continues to be the menace that it is, people might tech in 1 Tool Scrapper, kind of like what they did with Lugia when Lugia was popping off and people were using enhanced hammer. So I could see that as well. The only other thing I wanted to talk about, and again, I talk about this in the video I'm posting later this week, but I love the 4 superior energy retrieval. Like, that's a given, you need to have that. The one other thing I really like, and maybe it's just me, I just like having 1 regular energy retrieval. The reasoning for that is sometimes I need to get energy out of the discard, but I don't want to discard anything in my hand. And getting the 2 energy is great. What like really stinks is when you're in a situation where you have a superior energy retrieval in hand and you can Arven, but do you really want to Arven to grab a second superior energy retrieval and then discard, is it 2 or 3 discards? So now you're discarding 4 cards from your hand. I don't know how I feel about that. I'm going to be honest with you. Like, I don't like doing that because I feel like I have to compromise so much. I mean, you're really only running the 2 Night Stretcher in this list. You're not even running a Rod because, you know, obviously you're bringing everything out of the discard with your energies, but I don't know. There's a lot of times where, like, I really feel like if I just had the energy retrieval, I would Arven for that and get more value out of it. I would have to try this list out. I haven't tried it. But, yeah, that's just one thing that I noticed. So we have the bundle in here to get around the Jellicent, as mentioned. I guess the only other thing to talk about here is the Scyther and the Scizor. So this has been a tech that I've been seeing. You have the potential to hit for, I think, 240 is how the math goes out, right? No, 240, how do you get that? 200. So let's just say they have 5 Pokemon that have an ability. That's 5 times 6. Oh, so actually you're hitting harder than that. But anyway, it's a good tech card, don't get me wrong. It hits hard. But I'm gonna be honest, most of the time, I just feel like I'd rather attack with Goldengo. I haven't tested enough with Scizor to know, so I don't want to like make a whole comment on that. But I like the card. I think it's a good card. Sometimes I just feel like it clogs up my deck. I don't know. I think it's just because I don't actually know how to describe what I'm trying to think, because I just don't have enough reps with this to know that. So this is something I'd have to watch some gameplay of. One other card that I do like, though, is the Genesect, the regular baby Genesect that has the ability that shuts off the Ace Trainers that your opponent tries to play, or Ace Specs, I'm sorry. So I actually like having that as well, because that is searchable with your Genesect DX. And it just seems like pretty powerful. Like, imagine you can get that down early, or if you even start that. I mean, you could shut off Trolley, you could shut off Secret Box, you could shut off Neo Upper Energy, and it just feels really powerful. And then the decks that really rely on those Ace Specs are going to have to spend their Gust Power to get rid of that. Or you could just use it as a 1 prize or stall tactic as well. So, yeah, I think, listen, I think Goldengo is positioned to do very well at Worlds. I've actually been saying that for ever since I came back and the Genesect EX was announced. I turned to my friends and I said, this deck is going to go off. And a lot of people were worried about the Jellicent. Jellicent seems to be kind of absent. So right now, Jellicent's not in the meta. However, Jellicent is probably a pretty good counter for this. So do we see a meta that adapts to Goldengo and forcing out more of these jamming towers and more of these Jellicents? Or do we see a meta that just finds another way to deal with Goldengo and just says, hey, listen, if I'm able to get this 1 tech card in here, I'll be good. You know, one thing to consider is I think the rise of Charizard is pretty important to look at, because they're running this Chi-Yu and it's a fire Pokemon, which it's funny because historically Charizard is not a fire deck. It's actually a dark deck, right? So you're not hitting for weakness. But with this, you can hit for weakness. If anything was knocked out, you can revenge kill a Goldengo for 140 damage times 2. You're revenge killing it for 240, right? So, wait, actually, I'm sorry, 280. I said 240, but I meant 280. You're killing it for 280, which will kill it. So that might be part of the reason contributing to the rise of Charizard. You know, this guy did have a loss to 1 Goldengo. This guy beat another Goldengo. Let's take a look at this one. He beat this Goldengo. He beat this Goldengo. Yeah, so I mean, like, it seems to be the answer. Who knows? Charizard might rise out of the grave to come back for Worlds. I do know that Gabriel, was it Gabriel Fernandez or his brother? One of them, you know, won that the juniors sweep of the year with Charizard. So I wouldn't discount Charizard. Let's just put it that way. The meta is still in a very interesting spot. I guess the only deck we didn't talk about is Raging Bolt. I'll be honest with you, Raging Bolt is just always good. It's a very good middle ground where it's not a super hard deck to play. You can kind of tech it out a bunch of different ways and it still functions very, very well. And you just have to know how to sequence to make that deck work. So, I don't know. You're going to see a lot of Bolt. I just don't think it's going to win. Like, it's a good deck. I just don't think it's going to win. Just like how it's been for ever since its inception. So anyway, thank you guys for watching. If you like this kind of content, please leave a comment down below and leave me a like. It means a lot to me. I really like the talking videos more than the playing videos. Actually, I actually really like the analytical side of things. So let me know if you actually enjoy this or if I'm just making a fool of myself. And I'll talk to you next time.